What would you do if everything you've been working for suddenly crumbles before your eyes? Would you walk away? In the quiet of the night, when the world is asleep, one man is wide awake, torn between giving up or pushing forward with no guarantees. His name is Alex Chen, and his story isn't just about reaching a goal. It's about battling failure, confronting fears, finding hope in the darkest moments, and discovering the true meaning of perseverance when all seems lost. This is the journey of the mountain mover, a story of perseverance and determination. Alex Chen had always been someone who saw the world differently. Growing up, while other kids were content with their daily routines, Alex was the one who dreamt of building something extraordinary, something that would leave a lasting mark. But like many dreams, Alex's ambitions were set aside as life took over. A steady job, bills to pay, and the comfort of a predictable routine became the norm. Yet, the yearning for something more never left. Each day, as Alex sat in his office, working on projects that meant little beyond the next paycheck, a sense of dissatisfaction grew. It was as if a voice inside kept whispering, "You're meant for more than this." But that voice was often drowned out by the noise of daily life and the fear of stepping into the unknown. One late evening, after another long day at the marketing firm, Alex found himself sitting in the quiet of his small apartment. The city lights flickered outside the window, but inside, it felt dark and stagnant. He pulled out an old notebook filled with ideas and scribbles from years ago, dreams that had never been realized. As Alex flipped through the pages, one thought kept returning, if not now, then when? That night, sleep was elusive. Alex's mind kept drifting back to a Chinese proverb his grandmother used to say, "The man who moves a mountain begins by carrying away small stones." The words echoed in his mind, bringing a strange sense of comfort. Maybe the mountain of dreams didn't need to be conquered all at once. Maybe, just maybe, it could start with something small, one stone at a time. The next morning, Alex woke up with a renewed sense of purpose. For the first time in years, there was a spark, a feeling that today could be the start of something different. He didn't need to quit his job immediately or make a grand gesture. Instead, Alex decided to take the first small step. During lunch breaks and late nights, Alex began working on a side project, a passion that had been lingering in the back of his mind for years. It was a simple idea, nothing revolutionary, but it was his. It was the first stone in what Alex hoped would become a mountain of success. As the days turned into weeks, the project grew, and so did Alex's confidence. Each small achievement, whether it was a new idea that worked or a bit of positive feedback, felt like a stone added to the pile. And with each stone, the mountain that once seemed insurmountable started to look more like a challenge worth facing. But Alex knew this was just the beginning. The dream was still a long way off, and the journey ahead was bound to be filled with obstacles. Yet, for the first time in a long time, the fear that had once held him back was now overshadowed by the excitement of what could be. The mountain was vast, but Alex was ready. With one stone in hand, and many more to go, the journey had officially begun. Weeks turned into months, and Alex Chen's side project began to take shape. He poured every spare moment into it, driven by the belief that this could be the start of something big. The excitement of building something of his own gave him a sense of purpose he hadn't felt in years. The late nights, the early mornings, none of it seemed like a sacrifice because, for the first time, Alex felt alive. But with progress came the inevitable doubts. The closer Alex got to turning his idea into reality, the more the fear crept in. What if it wasn't good enough? What if no one cared? These thoughts gnawed at him, but he pushed them aside, telling himself that failure wasn't an option. Then it happened. Just as Alex was ready to unveil his project to a small group of trusted friends and potential supporters, everything started to unravel. A technical glitch, a minor oversight that seemed insignificant at first, snowballed into a major issue. The website he had painstakingly built crashed, wiping out weeks of work in an instant. Alex stared at the blank screen, disbelief washing over him. He had been so close, and now it felt like everything was slipping through his fingers. Panic set in as he tried to salvage what he could, but the more he tried to fix it, the more it seemed to fall apart. The next few days were a blur of frustration and exhaustion. Alex worked tirelessly to recover what was lost, but the damage was done. The excitement that had fueled him for months was replaced by a deep sense of defeat. It wasn't just the technical failure, it was the crushing realization that all his hard work might have been for nothing. Friends reached out, offering words of encouragement, but nothing seemed to ease the weight of disappointment that hung over him. Alex had poured everything into this project, and now it felt like he had nothing to show for it. One evening, as he sat alone in his apartment, replaying the events over and over in his mind, Alex felt the familiar sting of failure. The voice that had once whispered, "You're meant for more," was now taunting him with the harsh truth, "You were not ready." But then, in the quiet of that moment, another voice emerged. It was the memory of a lesson his grandfather had taught him long ago, a lesson embedded in a simple yet powerful proverb: fall 7 times, stand up 8. Alex let the words sink in. He had fallen, yes, but this wasn't the end. Couldn't be. The project wasn't dead, it was just wounded. And wounds, as painful as they were, could heal. The question was, did he have the strength to stand up again? The answer came slowly, but with certainty. Yes, he wasn't ready to give up. Not now, not ever. This was just the first fall, and it wouldn't be the last. But each fall was a chance to learn, to grow stronger, and to keep moving forward. Alex took a deep breath and stood up. The journey was far from over, and the mountain still loomed large. But he wasn't backing down. He would stand up 8 times, 9 times, however many times it took. The first fall had shaken him, but it had also reminded him of who he was. Someone who wouldn't quit, no matter how many times he stumbled. With renewed determination, Alex sat back down at his desk. There was work to be done, and he was ready to start again. The days following Alex Chen's first fall were marked by an intense inner struggle. The initial shock of failure had passed, but in its place was a lingering doubt. Every time Alex sat down to work on his project, that blank screen haunted him, a stark reminder of how quickly things could fall apart. But giving up wasn't an option. Alex had made a promise to himself that he would stand up again, no matter how many times he stumbled. Still, it was easier said than done. The excitement that once drove him had dimmed, replaced by a gnawing fear that maybe he was in over his head. As the days went on, the weight of adversity began to press down harder. Alex faced setbacks at work too. Nothing catastrophic, but enough to make him question his ability to balance everything. His boss had noticed his distracted state, and the pressure to perform was increasing. It felt like life was conspiring against him, testing his resolve at every turn. Then, one morning, Alex received an email that shook him to his core. It was from a potential investor, a friend of a friend who had shown interest in the project during its early stages. The email was polite but firm. After hearing about the technical issues and seeing the delays, the investor was pulling out. "It's just not the right time for me to take this risk," the message concluded. Alex felt his heart sink. This was more than just a setback. It was a blow to his confidence. If someone who believed in him was backing away, what did that say about his chances? The fear of failure, which had been lurking in the background, now surged to the forefront. Was he really cut out for this? Maybe he wasn't as capable as he thought. That evening, Alex went for a walk to clear his head. The city was alive with people, each one caught up in their own world, their own struggles. It was a small comfort, knowing he wasn't alone in facing challenges. But it didn't change the fact that the odds seemed stacked against him. As he walked, Alex found himself at the entrance of a small park, a quiet place he often visited when he needed to think. He sat on a bench, his mind racing with thoughts of giving up, of going back to the safety of his old life. But then, he remembered a quote his father had shared with him during a tough time in high school. "A gem cannot be polished without friction, nor a man perfected without trials." Alex let the words sink in. The smooth seas, the easy life had never been his path. He had always known that achieving something meaningful would be difficult, but he hadn't fully understood what that meant until now. It was in the rough seas, in the face of adversity, that he would learn what he was truly capable of. The realization hit him like a wave. This was his test. The setbacks, the failures, the doubts, they weren't signs to give up. They were challenges, opportunities to build the resilience he would need to succeed in the long run. The easy road would never lead to the heights he wanted to reach. Alex stood up from the bench, feeling a renewed sense of purpose. Yes, the investor had pulled out, and yes, the project was far from where he wanted it to be. But that didn't mean it was over. It just meant he had to find another way, a better way. As he walked back to his apartment, Alex began to formulate a plan. He would fix the technical issues, sure, but more importantly, he would use this adversity as fuel. He would push himself harder, learn from his mistakes, and come back stronger. The road ahead was still long and uncertain, but Alex was ready to face it head-on. For the first time since the fall, Alex felt a spark of excitement again. Adversity wasn't his enemy. It was his greatest teacher, and he was ready to learn everything it had to offer. Weeks passed, and Alex Chen was making progress, albeit slowly. The setbacks had taken a toll on his confidence, but the determination to succeed had kept him moving forward. Yet, despite his best efforts, something still felt off. The excitement that had once fueled his work was missing. He was going through the motions, but the spark, the passion, seemed to have dimmed. One cold evening, after another long day of work, Alex found himself in a small cafe near his apartment. He often came here to think, to escape the pressures of the day. As he sipped his coffee, his mind drifted back to the project. No matter how hard he tried, he couldn't shake the feeling that he was missing something, some key to reigniting the fire that had driven him before. As he sat lost in thought, an elderly man walked into the cafe, struggling to carry several bags of groceries. Without thinking, Alex stood up and offered to help. The man gratefully accepted, and together they managed to get the bags to a nearby table. The man, with a warm smile, thanked Alex and insisted on buying him a coffee as a token of appreciation. They sat down together, and the man introduced himself as Mr. Lee. As they chatted, Alex learned that Mr. Lee had once been an entrepreneur himself, running a small but successful business for many years before retiring. Intrigued by Alex's story, Mr. Lee asked about the project that had been occupying so much of his time. Alex hesitated, unsure of how much to reveal. He hadn't told many people about the specifics, partly out of fear that talking about it might jinx it, but also because he wasn't sure how to explain it in a way that captured its importance to him. Instead, he shared his frustrations, his fears of failing, and the doubts that had been plaguing him. Mr. Lee listened patiently, nodding as Alex spoke. When Alex finished, Mr. Lee leaned back and shared a piece of advice that had guided him through his own struggles. A bit of fragrance clings to the hand that gives flowers. Alex paused, letting the words sink in. There was something profound in that simple statement. In helping others, in giving of himself, he could find a sense of purpose and fulfillment that went beyond his personal struggles. The act of giving, of kindness, left a mark not just on those who received, but on the giver as well. It was a reminder that in the pursuit of his goals, he didn't have to go it alone, nor should he. Mr. Lee continued, "You've been carrying a heavy load, my friend. Sometimes we need to take a step back, not to give up, but to see things from a new perspective. Don't be afraid to ask for help, to lean on others. A burden shared is a burden halved." Alex felt a wave of gratitude wash over him. It wasn't just the advice that resonated, but the kindness behind it. Here was a man he had never met before, offering support and wisdom without expecting anything in return. It was a simple act, but it meant more to Alex than words could express. As they finished their coffee, Mr. Lee gave Alex one final piece of advice. "Remember, Alex, it's not just about reaching the top. It's about the journey, the people you meet along the way, and the person you become. Keep going, and don't forget that the flowers you give to others will leave their fragrance with you." With a renewed sense of purpose, Alex left the cafe that night, feeling lighter than he had in weeks. The project was still far from complete, and there were still many challenges ahead. But he wasn't alone. He had the support of friends and even strangers who believed in him. And as he walked home, Alex couldn't help but smile. He hadn't revealed the specifics of his project, but he knew now that it wasn't just about the end goal. It was about the journey, the small acts of kindness, and the wisdom shared along the way. The mountain was still there, looming large, but Alex was ready. One stone at a time, he would get there. The days following Alex Chen's conversation with Mr. Lee were marked by a renewed sense of clarity and purpose. The simple act of helping a stranger had reminded him of something he had lost sight of, the importance of giving, of being present for others, and how these actions could give him strength in return. But even with this newfound perspective, the road ahead was still challenging. The technical issues that had plagued his project were persistent, and the solutions he sought were frustratingly elusive. There were moments when the weight of it all threatened to pull him back into the despair he had felt before. The excitement he had once felt for his project had turned into a quiet determination, but sometimes that determination felt like it was slipping into mere wishing. Late one night, after hours of struggling with a particularly stubborn problem, Alex found himself staring out the window of his small apartment. The city lights twinkled below, a sea of possibilities that felt both close and impossibly distant. He sighed, running a hand through his hair, exhausted but unable to sleep. As he stood there, his thoughts drifted back to something his father had told him years ago. Great souls have wills, feeble ones have only wishes. The words echoed in his mind, bringing a fresh wave of clarity. Wishing was passive, a hope that something would happen on its own. But a strong will, a great soul, was about taking action, pushing forward no matter the obstacles, and refusing to give up, no matter how tough the road became. Alex realized that lately he had been leaning more on wishing than willing. He had been hoping that the solutions would come, that the project would somehow fix itself, rather than actively pushing forward with the grit and resolve that had driven him in the beginning. Determined to turn things around, Alex sat down at his desk and opened his laptop. He began reviewing his work, piece by piece, identifying the areas that needed improvement. It wasn't easy. There were moments when he felt like throwing in the towel, but each time, he reminded himself that this was the difference between those who achieved their dreams and those who merely wished for them. He worked through the night, driven by the understanding that great souls act with will, not wishful thinking. It was about taking control, making choices, and being willing to act, even when the path wasn't clear. As the sun began to rise, Alex felt a shift within himself. The problems weren't all solved, but he had made progress. More importantly, he had rekindled the fire that had driven him to start this journey in the first place. He wasn't just wishing for success. He was willing himself to achieve it, one step at a time. Alex leaned back in his chair, a tired but satisfied smile on his face. He had a long way to go, and there were still many challenges ahead, but he knew now that he had what it took to see this through. The difference was in his attitude, in his willingness to keep going, to keep fighting, even when the odds were against him. And as he watched the first light of dawn break through the clouds, Alex knew that no matter what, he wouldn't stop. He wouldn't give in to the easy path of wishing. He would act, he would push forward, and he would reach his goal. Not because he hoped for it, but because he willed it into existence. As the days turned into weeks, Alex Chen continued to push forward with a resolve that had grown stronger since his renewed commitment to the project. Yet, with every step he took, new challenges seemed to arise. It wasn't just the technical difficulties or the relentless grind. It was something deeper, something more personal. There were moments, usually late at night when the world was quiet, that Alex found himself questioning everything. The doubts that had been whispering in the back of his mind began to grow louder. Was he really capable of pulling this off? Had he bitten off more than he could chew? The pressure was immense, and the weight of his own expectations felt crushing at times. One evening, after a particularly grueling day, Alex sat alone in his small living room. His laptop was open, but the screen was dark. He hadn't touched it in hours. Instead, he sat there, lost in thought, feeling the familiar tug of doubt. The voice inside his head was merciless, questioning every decision he had made, every step he had taken. It was the same voice that had plagued him since the project had begun. the one that told him he wasn't good enough, that he didn't have what it took. But then, as if out of nowhere, a memory surfaced. It was something his martial arts instructor had once told him during a particularly tough training session. He who conquers himself is the mightiest warrior. The words struck him with a clarity that cut through the fog of self-doubt. In all his struggles, the greatest battle wasn't against the external obstacles, but the internal ones. The fears, the doubts, the insecurities, these were the real enemies. And if he could conquer them, if he could master his own mind, then no challenge, no setback could truly defeat him. Alex realized that the struggle wasn't about proving anything to anyone else. It was about proving something to himself. The project, with all its mysteries and challenges, was a test, not of his skills or knowledge, but of his inner strength. Taking a deep breath, Alex closed his eyes and began to calm his mind. He had been here before in the dojo, facing an opponent who was stronger, faster, better trained. But in those moments, he had learned that victory didn't come from physical strength alone. It came from within. It came from the ability to remain calm under pressure, to control one's emotions, and to never give in to fear. When he opened his eyes again, there was a new resolve within him. The doubts hadn't disappeared, but they no longer held the same power over him. He knew now that the true battle was within, and it was one he was determined to win. Alex returned to his work with a quiet confidence. The challenges were still there, and the road ahead was still uncertain, but he no longer felt overwhelmed by it all. Each time doubt began to creep in, he reminded himself of the warrior's path, the path of self-mastery. And so, with each passing day, Alex grew stronger, not just in his work, but in his mind. He was no longer just fighting to complete a project. He was fighting to become the person he needed to be to see it through. As he worked late into the night, the mystery of the project still unrevealed, Alex knew that the real journey wasn't just about achieving his goal. It was about conquering the doubts and fears that had held him back for so long. And with each step forward, he was doing just that, becoming the mightiest warrior, one who had conquered himself. The progress Alex Chen had made in recent weeks was undeniable. He had conquered many of the doubts that once held him back and had tackled challenges with a newfound inner strength. Yet, despite all of this, there was one thought that lingered in the back of his mind, growing stronger with each passing day. Why didn't I start this sooner? It was a thought that haunted him, especially during the quiet moments when his work was done for the day and he was left alone with his thoughts. Alex couldn't help but think about all the time he had wasted, all the years he had spent hesitating, doubting himself, and putting off the pursuit of his true passion. What if he had started this project years ago? Where would he be now? The questions gnawed at him, filling him with regret and a deep sense of missed opportunity. One evening, as he sat at his desk, staring at the progress he had made so far, the weight of this regret felt almost unbearable. He couldn't shake the feeling that he was too late, that he had squandered his chances by waiting so long to take the leap. But then, a memory surfaced, a conversation he had once overheard between two older men at a cafe. They had been talking about life, about the things they wished they had done when they were younger. One of them had sighed and said, "The best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is now." The words hit Alex with the force of a revelation. It was true, he couldn't go back in time and start his project earlier. He couldn't change the years he had spent doubting himself. But what he could do was act now, with the knowledge and determination he had gained through his journey. Regret, he realized, was just another way of avoiding action. It was a way to stay stuck in the past, to let fear and doubt dictate his future. But the past was gone, and the only thing that mattered now was what he chose to do in the present. With a renewed sense of urgency, Alex made a decision. He wouldn't waste any more time dwelling on what could have been. Instead, he would focus on what could be if he gave everything he had to his project right now. It wasn't too late, far from it. The years he had spent getting to this point had given him the experience, the knowledge, and the inner strength he needed to succeed. Alex got up from his desk and walked over to the window, looking out at the city below. The world was still moving, still full of opportunities, and he was still here with the chance to make something of his dreams. The second best time is now, he whispered to himself, feeling the truth of those words resonate deep within him. And so, with that realization, Alex turned back to his work. He wasn't starting from scratch. He was starting from a place of wisdom and understanding that had taken years to build. The road ahead was still challenging, but he was ready to face it, knowing that the time for action was now. As he dove back into his project, the mystery of what he was working on still unrevealed, Alex knew that he was exactly where he needed to be. Not because he had started years ago, but because he had chosen to start now with everything he had learned along the way. The past was gone, and the future was uncertain, but this moment, this present, was his, and he was determined to make the most of it. The journey had been long, filled with trials and tribulations that had tested Alex Chen in ways he never imagined. He had faced his fears, battled his doubts, and pushed through countless obstacles. The path to his goal had been anything but easy, but as he neared the end, there was a sense of anticipation in the air, a feeling that everything he had endured was about to pay off. For years, Alex had poured his heart and soul into his project, sacrificing time, energy, and even relationships to bring his vision to life. The setbacks had been many, and there were moments when giving up had seemed like the only option. But each time, he had found the strength to keep going, driven by a deep belief that what he was doing mattered. And now, finally, the moment had arrived. Alex stood before a small crowd, the culmination of his efforts displayed in front of him. The project he had worked on in secret for so long was finally complete, and the world was about to see it. As he looked out at the faces of those who had come to witness this moment, he felt a rush of emotions: relief, pride, and a profound sense of accomplishment. The room was filled with a hushed excitement, the kind that precedes something truly special. Alex could feel the weight of the years lifting off his shoulders as he prepared to reveal the fruits of his labor. The doubts that had once plagued him were gone, replaced by a quiet confidence. He knew that no matter what happened next, he had given everything he had to this project, and that in itself was a victory. As he stepped forward to speak, Alex's mind flashed back to all the moments of struggle, the sleepless nights, the endless hours of work. He remembered the times when it seemed like nothing would ever go right, when the project felt like an impossible dream. But through it all, he had persevered, holding on to the belief that if he just kept going, something beautiful would come of it. Perseverance is a tree of slow growth but bears the sweetest fruit. The words echoed in his mind as he began to speak, and he realized just how true they were. The journey had been long and arduous, but it was the difficulty of the path that made this moment so sweet. This wasn't just about the project. It was about everything he had learned along the way, the strength he had gained, and the person he had become. As he unveiled his work, the room erupted in applause. The project that had once been just a dream was now a reality, and the response was overwhelming. People were moved, inspired, and amazed by what they saw. And in that moment, Alex knew that every hardship, every setback, had been worth it. The success he felt wasn't just in the completion of the project. It was in the journey itself. The years of hard work, persistence, and unwavering determination had borne fruit, and it was sweeter than anything he could have imagined. As the crowd gathered around to congratulate him, Alex took a moment to step back and reflect. This was the reward for his perseverance, the culmination of everything he had worked for. It was a reminder that the sweetest victories are the ones that are hardest won. And as he stood there, surrounded by people who now shared in his vision, Alex felt a deep sense of fulfillment. He had done it. He had climbed the mountain, and now he was standing at the top, looking out at the view. The journey had been long, but the reward was sweeter for it. And as he looked to the future, Alex knew that this was just the beginning. There would be more challenges ahead, more mountains to climb, but now he had the confidence to face them, knowing that perseverance truly does bear the sweetest fruit. As the dust settled from the whirlwind of emotions following the project's completion, Alex Chen found himself in a new phase of his journey. The success of his project had brought him a sense of accomplishment, but it also presented a new challenge. What next? The project had been a monumental achievement, But as he reflected on the journey, Alex realized something important. While he had poured every ounce of his energy into making his vision a reality, there were aspects of the process where he had struggled, areas where his skills had fallen short. He had tried to do everything himself, from the creative elements to the technical details, and while the end result had been successful, the road had been far more difficult than it needed to be. One evening, as he sat in his favorite cafe, mulling over his next steps, he overheard a conversation between two artisans discussing their craft. One of them said, "A needle is not sharp at both ends." And the simplicity of the statement struck Alex like a bolt of lightning. The phrase was a reminder that no one could be perfect at everything. A needle has a sharp end and a blunt end for a reason. It's designed to serve a specific purpose, and trying to make it sharp at both ends would render it useless. In the same way, Alex realized that trying to excel in every aspect of his project had stretched him thin and made the process more painful than necessary. Alex began to understand that true success didn't come from trying to be great at everything, but from focusing on his strengths and acknowledging where he needed help. He had always been strong in certain areas, vision, creativity, and determination, but when it came to the technical side of things, he had struggled. Rather than see this as a weakness, he began to view it as an opportunity. Over the following days, Alex reached out to others who were strong in the areas where he wasn't. He connected with experts, sought advice, and built a small team of like-minded individuals who could complement his skills. It wasn't easy for him to let go of control, but he knew that this was the only way to ensure the continued success of his work. With his newfound focus on strengths, Alex began to work on his next project. This time, he didn't try to do everything himself. Instead, he focused on what he was best at and allowed others to shine in their areas of expertise. The process was smoother, more enjoyable, and less stressful than ever before. As the new project took shape, Alex felt a sense of balance he had never experienced before. By focusing on his strengths and allowing others to bring theirs to the table, he had created something even better than he could have imagined on his own. The success of his first project had been sweet, but this time the journey felt more sustainable, more aligned with who he truly was. A needle is not sharp at both ends, he reminded himself often, embracing the wisdom of those simple words. By acknowledging his limitations and focusing on what he did best, Alex was able to move forward with confidence, knowing that he didn't have to be perfect at everything. He just had to be the best version of himself. The audience, still unaware of the exact nature of his projects, watched with growing curiosity. They saw a man who had not only achieved success but who had also learned to refine his approach, to focus on what truly mattered. The mystery of Alex's work continued to captivate them, but it was his personal growth, his understanding of his own strengths and weaknesses, that kept them coming back, eager to see what he would do next. The journey had been long, filled with challenges and triumphs, and Alex Chen had grown in ways he never thought possible. His projects, still shrouded in mystery to the outside world, were moving forward steadily, each step bringing him closer to his ultimate goal. But as with all great endeavors, the final stretch often proved the most difficult. One afternoon, after weeks of intense focus and hard work, Alex found himself facing an unexpected setback. A critical piece of the puzzle had fallen through. A deal that was supposed to propel his project to the next level had suddenly been jeopardized. The frustration and disappointment hit him like a tidal wave, threatening to wash away all the progress he had made. As he sat in his office, staring at the email that had just delivered the bad news, Alex could feel anger rising within him. This setback felt like a betrayal, a direct assault on everything he had worked so hard to build. The temptation to react immediately was overwhelming. He wanted to fire off a furious response, to let his emotions dictate his actions, and to try to force a solution through sheer willpower. But just as he was about to give in to the anger, something stopped him. A memory surfaced, an old proverb that his grandmother had often shared with him during his childhood. Patience in one moment of anger can prevent 1,000 days of sorrow. The words echoed in his mind, their wisdom suddenly crystal clear. Alex realized that acting out of anger in this moment could lead to decisions he might regret, decisions that could undo all the progress he had made. He knew he needed to pause, to take a step back, and to let the storm of emotions pass before making any decisions. So, instead of reacting immediately, Alex closed his laptop and took a deep breath. He decided to go for a walk, giving himself the time and space to think clearly. As he walked through the quiet streets of his neighborhood, the anger slowly began to dissipate, replaced by a sense of calm. He began to see the situation for what it truly was, not a disaster, but a challenge. One that, like all the others before it, could be overcome with patience and a clear mind. By the time he returned home, Alex had a new plan. Instead of reacting out of anger, he would approach the situation with understanding and patience, finding a solution that would keep his project on track without burning bridges or creating unnecessary conflict. The next day, with a calm demeanor and a clear strategy, Alex reached out to the people involved in the deal. Instead of confrontation, he offered a constructive conversation, seeking to understand the reasons behind the setback and finding a way forward that worked for everyone. To his relief, the situation began to turn around. The other parties appreciated his approach, and together they found a compromise that allowed the project to move forward, stronger than before. What could have been a catastrophic setback had been averted by a single moment of patience, just as the proverb had warned. As Alex reflected on the events of the past few days, he felt a deep sense of gratitude for the lessons he had learned along his journey. He had faced adversity, doubt, and frustration, but through it all, he had discovered the power of patience, perseverance, and determination. The project, still undisclosed, continued to progress, each day bringing him closer to his dream. But more than the project itself, it was the personal growth, the inner strength, and the wisdom he had gained that made the journey worthwhile. In that moment, Alex knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, he had the tools to face them. He had learned that success wasn't just about hard work and determination. It was also about patience, about knowing when to act and when to wait, and about understanding that sometimes the most powerful decisions are the ones made in stillness. As he looked out at the city from his office window, Alex felt a sense of peace. The journey had been long, but it had shaped him into the person he was always meant to be. And now, with his project moving forward and his spirit renewed, he was ready to face whatever came next. Because in the end, the true reward wasn't just in the success of the project. It was in the person he had become along the way.
The legacy of the mountain mover.
As Alex Chen stood quietly by his window, he took a moment to reflect on the journey that had brought him to this point. It had been a path filled with trials and triumphs, each step teaching him invaluable lessons that had not only shaped his project, but also his character. The wisdom he had gained was not just his to keep. It was something to be shared, to inspire others on their own journeys. Hence, the legacy of the mountain mover. Here are a few take-alongs on your own journey. Firstly, there will be moments in your life when everything feels like it's falling apart. The plans you've made, the goals you've set, all of it seems distant, and you might start to wonder if you're capable of achieving your dreams at all. But here's the truth. The journey you're on, with all its struggles, is exactly what's shaping you into the person you need to be to achieve something extraordinary. You've already shown strength just by starting. You had the courage to dream, and that's the first step most people don't take. But now comes the real test, continuing when the going gets tough. And it will get tough. There will be times when you want to give up, when it feels like you're pushing a boulder uphill and it's never going to move. But remember this, it's not the easiest paths that lead to the most beautiful destinations. Keep pushing, keep climbing. Every step, no matter how small, is progress. Secondly, you're going to face challenges that test your patience, and you might feel the urge to rush through them. But patience isn't about sitting still. It's about having the strength to wait for the right moment, to breathe when everything around you is screaming for action. In that pause, you find clarity. You see things you didn't before, and suddenly, the path ahead becomes clear. It's in those moments of stillness that you'll find your greatest strength. Don't rush the process. Trust it. Then there's that voice in your head, the one that whispers doubts and fears. You know it well. It shows up just when you're about to make a breakthrough, convincing you that you're not enough, that you don't have what it takes. But here's what you need to know. The strongest battle you'll ever fight is the one within yourself. Conquer that, and the world will open up to you. Start with mastering your mind, and the rest will follow. The doubts will still be there, but they'll no longer control you. You'll be in charge. Thirdly, let's talk about focus. It's easy to get lost in everything you think you need to do to try to be perfect in every area of your life. But perfection isn't the goal, progress is. Focus on what you do best. Double down on your strengths. Don't get caught up in trying to do it all or be it all. Find your lane and give it everything you've got. It's better to be great at one thing than average at many. Your journey is unique. No one else has your story, your dreams, or your perspective. You've already come so far, and there's so much more ahead of you. The road will have its ups and downs, but the lessons you're learning along the way are invaluable. They're shaping you, making you stronger, wiser, and more prepared for the success you're working toward. Keep moving forward. Keep believing in yourself even when it's hard. The dream you're chasing isn't just about reaching a destination. It's about becoming the person who can achieve it. And that, above all, is the real reward. The mountain you're climbing may seem high, but step by step, you're getting closer. And one day, you'll look back and realize that every challenge, every moment of doubt, every lesson learned was worth it. You'll realize that you're capable of more than you know. Keep going. You've got this. And so, to all who have followed Alex's story, know this. The journey of life is filled with twists and turns, but with perseverance, patience, self-mastery, and focus, you too can achieve greatness. Whatever your dream, whatever your goal, the lessons of Alex's journey are yours to apply. Because in the end, the true measure of success isn't just in what you achieve. It's in who you become along the way. And that, more than anything, is the legacy of the mountain mover. So what will your legacy be? The same perseverance, patience, and self-belief that carried Alex through his darkest days can carry you through yours. There's greatness inside you, just waiting to be unlocked. If Alex's journey has resonated with you, we'd love to hear your thoughts. Share your biggest takeaway in the comments below, and let's keep the conversation going. And if you haven't already, make sure to like, subscribe, and join us here at Ancient Paths, Modern Lives, where we continue to explore timeless wisdom for modern challenges.